In 1868, Godey's Lady's Book declared self-defense outside the female sphere. It said a proper wife waited for her husband to return. It said firearms endangered children. It said the answer was prayer and a locked door. Your great-grandmother ignored every word and loaded the family carbine at sundown because her husband was 200 miles away on a cattle drive and 4 sleeping children do not defend themselves. Number 9 on this list sat on every frontier cook stove, cost nothing to make, and could blind a man permanently. Number 3 is a communication network built entirely by wives whose husbands were gone for months at a time, so reliable that a United States Army officer admitted it outperformed his own. These 9 tricks were not forgotten because they stopped working. They were forgotten because Hollywood decided frontier wives looked better screaming and waiting for rescue than standing in a doorway with a rifle while their husbands were 3 territories away. Subscribe, because what you are about to hear is not Hollywood myth. It is the real American frontier. Number 9. The LYE pot. A cast iron vessel of near-boiling lye soap sat on the back plate of the wood stove within arm's reach of the cabin door. Concentrated lye at temperature causes immediate chemical burns to skin and permanent blindness on contact with the eyes. The ladle sat in the pot sat on the stove sat 3 steps from the door. That geometry was not an accident. In sod houses across the Nebraska Territory during the 1860s, a wife whose husband had ridden out for weeks at a time could have her hand on that ladle before a stranger crossed her threshold. She told visitors it was washing day. It was always washing day. Your great-grandmother kept a weapon disguised as housework, and nobody who saw her stirring it ever thought to question why. Number 8. The door bar and shutter pins. The first thing a husband did before leaving on a cattle drive was check the crossbar and the shutter pins. If he did not, his wife checked them herself. Women in the Missouri borderlands during the 1860s fitted heavy oak crossbars into iron brackets on the inside of every exterior door. Window shutters were pinned from within using hand-forged iron bolts that could not be pried from outside. A wife alone with her children could seal a cabin in under 30 seconds. The walls were sod or log. The door was barred oak. The shutters were pinned iron. That cabin became a bunker, and the woman inside decided who entered and when. Her husband built the cabin. She made it a fortress the night he rode out. Number 7. The dog line, not pets. A living alarm with teeth stationed at calculated distances from the cabin. The far dog near the tree line. The middle dog at the yard's edge. The house dog between the children and the door. In the Willamette Valley settlements of Oregon Territory during the 1850s, wives whose husbands worked timber camps or traded downriver for weeks trained dogs to produce distinct alert sounds. One bark meant wildlife. Another bark meant humans on foot. Another bark meant approaching horses. A wife alone at night could read the darkness entirely by ear. The dogs ate scraps, and they cost nothing. Your great-grandmother had something that could not be unplugged, bribed, or fooled. Her husband left her alone. He did not leave her unprotected. Number 6. The kitchen arsenal. The rifle was the primary weapon, but it was never the only one. A frontier kitchen held a skinning knife, a hatchet for kindling, a cast iron skillet heavy enough to fracture bone, and a fire poker within arm's reach of the hearth. Wives in the Texas Hill Country settlements during the 1870s kept these tools arranged in a specific order along the kitchen wall, not for convenience, but for sequence. If the rifle failed, the hatchet was next. Then the knife, then the skillet. Your great-grandmother had a backup for her backup, and every one of them was something she used before breakfast. Her husband carried one gun on the trail. She kept 4 weapons in the kitchen alone. Those tools handled what got through the door, but a smarter wife made sure nothing got close in the first place. That brings us to number 5. Number 5, the rifle drill. A husband heading out on a long drive left ammunition and expected his wife to use it. Women in the settlements surrounding Fort Riley, Kansas, practiced at fence post targets out to 60 yards. An 1874 Army correspondence noted that homestead wives in surrounding counties were uniformly competent marksmen. That phrasing surprised the officer who wrote it. She practiced in the morning before chores. She practiced again at dusk because trouble arrives most often in low light. She practiced with the baby on her hip because that was the truth of her situation. A husband trusted his wife with his children and his homestead and his entire future. She made certain that trust was not misplaced. Here is something worth knowing. The Hays Code, enforced from 1934 to 1968, restricted depictions of women as violent or independent of male authority. The code penalized any depiction of women using lethal force. An armed frontier wife contradicted both the commercial product and the censors who approved it. In 1988, historian Glenda Riley published The Female Frontier, documenting hundreds of frontier wives who managed homesteads with more composure than the men around them. Your great-grandmother never screamed from a wagon waiting for a man to save her. She stood in the doorway with a loaded rifle because her husband was not there to stand in it. Hollywood turned her into a prop. She deserved better. Number 4, the root cellar escape. Beneath many frontier cabins in the Dakota Territory during the 1870s, wives dug a second purpose into the root cellar while their husbands were away on seasonal drives. A hidden exit, a low tunnel shored with scrap timber that emerged behind the wood pile or into a shallow creek bed. Children were drilled on the root in the dark. The oldest went first, carrying the youngest, moving in silence. The mother stayed above. She barred the door. And she made noise, because noise in the cabin meant whoever was outside kept looking at the cabin, not at the creek bed where her children were already gone. A husband expected to come home to a standing house and living children. His wife made certain of both, even if it meant she was the last one out. Number 3, the neighbor's signal. A white cloth hung on the east-facing fence rail meant all is well. A red cloth meant come immediately and come armed. 3 rifle shots, spaced at 5-second intervals, meant active danger. Rally now. In the settlements around Virginia City, Montana Territory, during the 1860s, wives whose husbands were away in the mining camps established signal relays across homesteads spaced 1 to 2 miles apart. A signal raised at one cabin could cover 5 miles of territory in under 10 minutes. A United States Army Signal Corps report from 1879 documented these relay systems and noted their remarkable efficiency. These were not women waiting for their husbands to return. They were wives who decided that if the men were gone, the women would protect each other. Number 2, the reputation. A frontier wife did not keep quiet about what she was capable of. A woman who had shot a wolf or driven off a drifter while her husband was away told the story at the general store. She told it at church on Sunday. She told it to every new arrival in the territory. In Tombstone, Arizona Territory, during the 1880s, territorial newspapers ran accounts of wives defending homesteads alone. Some women left spent brass cartridges on the windowsill where visitors could see them. Others hung a tanned wolf hide on the porch rail. The message was clear. This homestead has a woman in it, and her husband is away, and she will shoot you before you reach the door. Reputation traveled faster than a horse on the frontier. A homestead known to be defended by a wife who shot straight received fewer uninvited visitors. Here is the second truth. The Pinkerton National Detective Agency sold private security contracts at rates no homestead family could afford. To sell that product, self-organized community defense had to be reframed as primitive or vigilante. Most frontier wives lived 15 to 40 miles from the nearest lawman, while their husbands were gone for weeks or months at a time. Response times were measured in days, not minutes. The average emergency response in rural America today still exceeds 20 minutes. In former frontier counties of Montana and Wyoming, it can exceed 45 minutes. Your great-grandmother was her own law because her husband was on the trail and nobody else was coming over that ridge in time. Every trick on this list your great-grandmother used while her husband was away. But there was one thing she did that was harder than all of them combined. It is the one Hollywood will never put on screen. Number 1. The daughter's inheritance. When the father rode out for the cattle drive, the training began. A wife alone with small children needed a second defender. That defender was her oldest daughter, sometimes 12, sometimes 10. She learned to load, aim, and fire the family rifle. She learned where the lye pot was and what it was for. She learned the signal cloth colors and the neighbor's name to call for. She learned the root cellar tunnel and where it came out. In the homesteads of western Kansas during the 1870s, diary entries at the Kansas State Historical Society describe mothers and daughters standing watch in shifts while the father was away. The mother from sundown to midnight. The daughter from midnight to dawn. A girl of 11 standing watch over a dark prairie with a rifle across her knees. Because her father was 200 miles south with the herd and her mother could not stay awake forever. She learned everything because her mother understood a truth she would never speak aloud. If something happens to me before your father comes home, these children will need someone who can do what I do. That girl did not ask why. She had heard the dogs bark in the dark. She had seen her mother in the doorway with the rifle on the nights her father was away. And when she grew up and married, and her own husband rode out on his first drive, she already knew what to do. Same quiet voice, same steady hands, same lessons passed from wife to daughter across 50 years of frontier life, until someone decided those women were not worth remembering. These were not helpless wives waiting for their husbands to return. They were the last wall between everything their families had built and everything that wanted to take it. If you want more real frontier history, subscribe and watch the video appearing on your screen right now. That knowledge did not die with your great-grandmother. It just went quiet, and it is time to start listening again.